I cannot tell a lie, folks, when I tell you at halftime, I went and watched part two of the Mr. McMahon Netflix documentary, which I will be reviewing in full once I get done with that documentary. But I thought this game between Georgia and Alabama was over. Kalen DeBoer, Jalen Milroe came out odd. They forced two turnovers off Carson Beck, who looked like a deer in headlights, looked like he was not ready for the moment, and Alabama took the fight to Kirby Smart's Georgia team. And I said this prior to the game. I said, you watch Georgia against Kentucky. They're not the same offense. You watch Georgia. I know they put it on in the second half against Clemson, but they did not look explosive in the first half of that game. There were some chinks in Georgia's armor, and Alabama exposed all of them in the first half. Problem is, though, Kalen DeBoer, Jalen Milroe, the defense, for whatever reason, I think Alabama got comfortable. They thought, like I did, Georgia wasn't going to fight back. And you could see a little bit of signs late in the first half. Georgia was trying to get back in the ball game. Alabama had a couple penalties after scoring those first 28. They were running the football. Jalen Milroe, who had over 100 yards rushing in the first half, was not being as aggressive with his legs. Defensively, there was a lot of open room. There was a couple missed throws by Beck. There was guys wide open. And then in the second half, you just started seeing Georgia run the football a little bit, get the ball in the hands of Travis Etienne's brother, starting to make a few plays. And then all of a sudden it's 28-15, and you're saying, oh, right? And this happens all the time in professional sports. I mean, how many times did we see it in the NFL on Sunday? Teams get up 21 nothing, teams get up 24 nothing. Midway for the third quarter, it's 24-14 or it's 27-21. And you see the team that just has such a comfortable lead go into conservative mode instead of burying it. We see it all the time in basketball. We don't see it so much in baseball. It's obviously very hard to mail it in baseball. See it all the time in basketball. How many 20-point comebacks in the third quarter do we see nowadays? And not only the NBA, but college basketball as well. And we're starting to see it in football. But what I saw between Georgia and Alabama was obviously an incredible game. The SEC is more stacked than ever. And, it was one thing for Georgia that I was really impressed with was now with the 12-team playoff, we all think Georgia is a top 12 team in the country. Now, I don't know if they're a top four team in the country. I will tell you, I think Alabama is a top 14, but I think, Old Miss losing to Kentucky definitely knocks them down. But I think if you were to tell me right now, I think it's Tennessee, I think it's Alabama, I think it's Ohio State, and I think it's Texas. I've just seen not enough from Georgia to tell me they're a top four team yet. Though again, they actually could be at the end of the season, and we could see. Who knows? If Tennessee falters here, I know Alabama's got a game with them in a couple weeks. Georgia has a massive game against Texas in a couple weeks that may decide their fate as to whether or not they're going to be in the SEC championship game. But I do think that, Georgia gonna wait over. Again, they're gonna be a top 12 team in the country. They're gonna make the CFP. Does seeding matter as much to them? We don't know the answer to that yet. But Alabama could have run away with this in Tuscaloosa. It could have been a second half blowout. And again, the Georgia's fight that came out of the second half with a game plan. They were going to contain Jalen Milroe, who at times to me looks like a mix between Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. And Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler alluded to this on the broadcast. He has grown up so much during the past year. The difference in Jalen Milroe from the quarterback he was last year when Alabama got stomped out by Texas in week two in Tuscaloosa to the quarterback he is now is incredible. I also thought, for the record, the officials, there was a lot of pass interference on this game. I mean, early on, Alabama on a 4th and 1, could have been called for PI. I thought Georgia should have got a PI call late in that game. The throw before the interception that Beck made, it looked like there was interference. There was no call on Alabama. But I gotta say, right, there wasn't a lot of holding calls. There wasn't PI. The officials were very consistent throughout. They really let the players play. And so, big game. This is what the college football SEC Big Ten expansion, this is what we wanted. We wanted to see Georgia, Alabama in the regular season. And yes, it was disappointing in the first half, but when you look at that game, just incredible big plays. There's big NFL talent all over the field. And to me, Alabama just came out and they physical Georgia. Again, they caught them off guard with Jalen Milroe in the run game, but Jalen Milroe made incredible throws, down the sideline. And what was amazing about that game, especially in the first half, was how wide open the Alabama players were and the poor tackling, I thought, by Georgia. And they obviously cleaned that up in the second half. Alabama got stifled. And we've seen, again, what momentum can do for you in football. You can have 3 or 4 good drives in a row. If you have 1 or 2 bad drives in a row, it can set you back for the whole half. So I thought it was a well played game on both sides. Again, credit to Georgia. I think these two teams will meet again, but that was certainly an exciting game. And I got to tip my hat to Kalen DeBoer, who I was not sure. I thought both these teams were going to come out shaky. I thought Alabama was going to come out the way that Georgia did. Kalen DeBoer's first game in the rivalry. Was he going to be ready for Georgia, Alabama, SEC level football? Both these teams were coming out bye weeks, so they had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. And I think Alabama, my biggest takeaway from this game is Alabama post Nick Saban, they're not going away. They're going to be just fine. I don't know if Georgia has the depth this year to win the national championship, but they will certainly be in contention because once we get into the CFP, the cream will rise to the crop. Again, I think right now, Ohio State, who dismantled Michigan State, they really haven't played anybody. You got Texas, who just beat Michigan. You got Tennessee, who, really hasn't played much of anybody. And then Bama last night with their big win against Georgia. I'm very interested to see how Georgia plays Texas in a couple weeks because I think that will be the measuring stick for how far Georgia will go this year and how for real Texas is. Because with Texas' offensive line, with Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning, whoever's playing quarterback for Texas, they right now look like the deepest team in the country to me, and I would love to see them match up against Georgia or Alabama down the road. Like that clip from the Brandsworth podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandsworth podcast right here on YouTube.